Welcome to Terrormouth, where the night doesn't just hold secrets, it remembers them. Story 1, Asterisk, the Mirror Countdown Ritual. No one in Raven's Hollow remembered where the ritual came from. It wasn't written in books, it wasn't spoken about in church, and it was never performed out loud. It was something you learned by watching. Every New Year's Eve, just before midnight, certain houses in town would go dark, lights off, curtains drawn, phones switched to airplane mode. If you passed by those homes, you might see a single candle flickering behind the glass, or the faint glow of a bathroom light. People said it was superstition, others called it tradition, but the older residents knew the truth. It was called the Mirror Countdown Ritual, and once you started it, you couldn't stop. The rules never written, always followed. You were supposed to be alone. You were supposed to lock every door. You were supposed to stand in front of a mirror. Mirrors worked best at exactly 5 minutes before midnight. No music, no TV, no clocks, except the one on your phone at 11:55 p.m. You lit a candle behind you, not in front. At 11:56, you stared into your own reflection and did not blink. At 11:57, you whispered your full name. At 11:58, you asked the mirror one question: what will follow me into the new year? At 11:59, you stayed silent, and at midnight, you waited for the mirror to answer. Most people claimed nothing happened. Those people usually moved away by February. Ethan Cole didn't believe in any of it. Ethan was newly back in Raven's Hollow after his father's funeral. He hated the town, the way it watched you, the way it remembered things you wanted forgotten. On December 31st, he found the ritual written on a torn piece of paper inside his childhood bathroom cabinet. The handwriting wasn't his. It wasn't his father's either. At the bottom, written shakily, were 5 words: "I shouldn't have finished it." Ethan laughed. Nervous laughter, but still laughter. He had spent years studying psychology. He knew about rituals, suggestion, placebo effects, midnight hysteria, fear of time. So, at 11:54 p.m., he locked the bathroom door. Just to prove something. 11:55 p.m., candle flame trembled behind him, reflected faintly in the mirror like a second heartbeat. The bathroom felt colder than the rest of the house. Ethan checked his phone. Signal gone. Airplane mode. He didn't remember turning it on. Probably muscle memory, he thought. 11:56 p.m., He stared into his reflection. At first, everything was normal. His tired eyes, the faint scar above his eyebrow. Then the reflection blinked. Ethan hadn't. His stomach tightened. "Okay," he muttered. Visual lag, stress. The reflection smiled. Ethan did not. 11:57 p.m., his voice sounded wrong in the bathroom, flattened, like it had been pressed against glass. "Ethan Cole." The mirror fogged slightly, as if someone on the other side had breathed. 11:58 p.m., Hi's mouth felt dry. This was the part everyone avoided talking about. He leaned closer to the mirror. What will follow me into the new year? The candle behind him flickered violently in the reflection. Something moved behind his shoulder. Ethan spun around. Nothing. When he faced the mirror again, his reflection was still smiling, but now its lips were moving, silently counting. 11:59 p.m. Ethan's phone vibrated. The screen lit up without him touching it. 11:59 to 3011. 59 to 2900, 11 to 59 to 28. The countdown was going backward. The reflection raised one finger, then another, matching the numbers. Ethan tried to look away. He couldn't. The mirror felt closer, now like the room was shrinking around it. The reflection stopped smiling. Its mouth opened, and although the rules said the mirror would answer at midnight, it began speaking early. 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds, you were. The reflection whispered, its voice layered, wrong, echoing from inside the glass, will not cross alone. 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds, the candle went out. The bathroom plunged into darkness, but the mirror was still glowing. 12 o'clock a.m. The reflection stepped forward, and the glass rippled. Ethan screamed, "End of part O&F, you're ready. Just say, give me part 2, and I'll deliver a long, brutal, supernatural conclusion that completes the ritual and the horror." Ethan hit the bathroom door with his shoulder. It didn't move. He slammed his fists against it again, screaming for help, but the sound didn't echo through the house. It was swallowed, pressed flat, as if the bathroom existed somewhere separate now. Behind him, the mirror made a sound, not a crack, not a shatter, a wet, stretching noise, like skin being peeled from bone, slowly. Ethan turned. The mirror's surface no longer reflected the bathroom. It reflected a room behind the glass, a place darker, deeper, and impossibly wide. Candles lined the walls, thousands of them, all burning with the same weak, trembling flame, and standing inches from the glass was himself, no something wearing him. The thing in the reflection, its eyes were wronged too deep, too old. Its smile stretched further than human jaws allowed. "You asked," it said gently. "What would follow you?" The glass rippled again. A hand pressed outward. From inside the mirror, Ethan staggered back, slipping on the tiled floor. "No," he whispered. "This isn't real. This is shock, grief. I didn't. You finished the ritual." The thing replied, its voice layered with others now, men, women, children, overlapping, whispering, chanting the final seconds of the countdown. 10, 9, 8. The hand pushed through. The mirror didn't break. It accepted it. The truth about Raven's Hollow. The thing stepped out, feet touching tile without sound. Behind it, the mirror showed more faces, now dozens of reflections stacked inside the glass, all staring outward with hollow eyes. "Every year," it said, pacing slowly, "this town offers one of its own." Ethan's heart pounded, so hard he felt dizzy. "My father," he whispered. The thing smiled wider. He asked the same question you did. The candle flames inside the mirror flared violently. Some wish for wealth, some for love, some just want to survive another year. The thing leaned close, but the mirror answers honestly. The bargainathan lunged for the sink, smashing it with his elbow, shattering porcelain. The thing didn't react. "You can still choose," it said calmly. Ethan froze. "What? What do you mean?" The reflection gestured toward the mirror. "One of you stays. One of you leaves." Ethan stared at the glass inside it. He saw his father, now older, fingers pressed against the surface, mouth moving silently, begging. "You'll take my place," Ethan said. The thing shook its head. "No." It stepped closer. "You'll become my place." When time broke completely, Ethan felt his body moving without permission. His feet dragged toward the mirror. The glass felt warm. When his fingers touched it, alive, pulsing dot inside. The voices grew louder. Not screams, celebration. Fireworks exploded somewhere far away. Muffled and distorted, the mirror swallowed. Ethan's hand, then his arm. Pain didn't come. Cold did. A cold so deep it erased thought. The house at 12:03 a.m. The lights in Ethan's house turned back on. The bathroom door unlocked itself. Neighbors later said they saw Ethan step outside, calm and smiling, wishing everyone a happy new year. But something was wrong. He never blinked. What happens? Now Ethan still lives in Ravens Hollow. He's always the first to invite new residents over for New Year's Eve. Always polite, always helpful, and every year, just before midnight, he gives the same advice. Mirrors don't lie, he says softly. They just don't tell the whole truth. And somewhere deep inside the glass, another reflection waits, counting backward.
Story 2.
The bells that should never ring in the town of Marrow's End. New Year's Eve had always been quiet. Not peaceful, just restrained, like the town itself was holding its breath. Nestled between frozen hills and a river that never fully thawed, Marrow's End was the kind of place people passed through without stopping, even though no highway officially marked it as a shortcut. There were no fireworks shows here, no countdowns in the square, no loud music spilling from bars. Instead, the town had bells. Every year, at exactly midnight on December 31st, the old church bells rang 12 times. Not more, not less. No one touched them. No one climbed the bell tower. And no one ever asked who rang them. They just rang. When I moved to Marrow's End in late November, I didn't know any of this. I had taken a temporary teaching job at the local high school after my divorce, looking for a place quiet enough to rebuild my life. The rent was cheap. The streets were empty. The people were polite, but distant. Distant. It wasn't until December 28th that I first heard about the ritual. I was grading papers in the teacher's lounge when Mrs. Calder, an elderly woman who taught history, paused beside the coffee machine. She stared at the calendar pinned to the wall. "Almost time," she said quietly, "for winter break to end." I asked. Her eyes shifted to me, pale, sharp, for the bells. I laughed, assuming it was a local celebration. "Oh, I didn't know you had a New Year's tradition." Her mouth tightened. "It's not a celebration." That was the end of the conversation. She walked away without another word. That night, curiosity gnawed at me. I searched online for Marrow's End traditions, but there was almost nothing. No official website, no town history page, just a few forum posts from travelers who mentioned strange church bells, and locals who don't leave their houses on New Year's Eve. One comment stuck with me. "If you hear the bells more than 12 times, don't answer your door." I dismissed it as folklore, creepy, small-town superstition. Still, it lingered in my thoughts like a bad taste. The next day, I asked Jonah, the school janitor. He'd lived in Marrow's End his whole life and spoke rarely. But when he did, his words carried weight. "What happens on New Year's Eve?" I asked casually. His mop froze mid-swipe. "You stay inside," he said. "And the bells, they remind us of what?" He looked at me then, really looked at me. "That time isn't a door. It's a trap." I should have stopped asking questions after that. But I didn't. On December 31st, snow began falling just before dusk. Thick, heavy flakes that muted sound and blurred the edges of the town. By 7 p.m., the streets were empty. Every house was dark. No lights, no cars, no people except mine. I stood by the window, watching the church steeple rise in the distance, like a black finger pointing at the sky. The clock face beneath the bells was cracked, frozen permanently at 11:58. That alone should have terrified me at 11:30. My phone buzzed, a text message. No contact name, just a number with too many digits. "Do not watch the clock." I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. At 11:45, the air inside my house grew colder. Not drafty wrong, as if the temperature wasn't dropping naturally but being pulled down, second by second. 11:55. I heard footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, circling my house. I turned off the lights and peeked through the curtains. Nothing, no one. At 11:59, every sound stopped. No wind, no snow, no hum of electricity. Then dash bong. The first bell rang. Deep, vibrational, it shook the walls and rattled the glass. Bong. The second bell echoed, longer this time, as if the sound itself was stretching. I counted silently, 3, 4, 5. With each bell, something changed. The shadows in my living room shifted, bending toward the walls instead of away from them. The reflection in my dark TV screen lagged behind my movements by half a second. 6.7. I heard whispers, not words, but breathing. Too close, right behind my ears. 8.9. The air smelled metallic, like old blood and cold iron. 10.11. My phone vibrated again. "Whatever you do, do not answer after 12.12. The final bell rang. Relief flooded my chest. I hadn't even realized I was holding my breath. Then dash, bong, the 13th bell. The sound was wrong, lower, heavier, as if something massive had shifted beneath the town. I stumbled back from the window. The clock on my wall flickered. 11:59 p.m. The bell rang again. 14.a. Knock echoed through my house. Not loud, not aggressive, polite. 3. Slow taps on the front door. My phone vibrated. Violently, it missed you. The knock came again. Then a voice, muffled through the wood. "Happy New Year," it said. The voice was mine. I didn't answer the door. I don't know what instinct stopped me, fear, logic, or something older buried deep in my bones, but my hand froze inches from the handle. The voice on the other side breathed softly, patiently, like it knew time itself was on its side. The clock on the wall still read 11:59 p.m. Another bell rang. 15. The sound didn't come from the church tower this time. It came from everywhere. Inside the walls, beneath the floor, inside my chest. Each vibration sent a sharp pain through my skull, like my thoughts were being rearranged. The voice spoke again, closer now. "Open the door. You're late." Late for what? The knocking stopped. Instead, I heard fingernails dragging slowly across the wood, tracing the outline of the doorframe, as if memorizing the shape of my house. I backed away, heart hammering, and bumped into the couch. The TV flickered on by itself. The screen showed my living room from above. I watched myself standing there, pale and shaking, except the version on the screen was smiling, calm, expectant, behind that version of me. The front door opened. I screamed and yanked the power cord from the wall. The TV went dark, but the image burned into my mind. 16. My phone rang. This time, It wasn't a text. It was a call from my own number. Against every ounce of reason, I answered. Breathing filled the line. Slow, measured. Then my voice spoke. "You weren't supposed to stay awake," it said. "Most people don't. Who are you?" I whispered. "I'm you," it replied gently. The you that made it through. The bells began ringing faster now. No longer steady, no longer countable. They overlapped, layered on top of each other until it sounded like the town itself was screaming. I collapsed to the floor, clutching my head. "What happens after 12?" I asked. There was a pause on the line, long enough that I thought the call had ended. "Then we collect the ones who notice." The house shook. The front door creaked inward an inch, even though I hadn't unlocked it. Snow spilled across the threshold, swirling upward instead of falling. I remembered what Jonah had said. Time isn't a door. It's a trap. Something was wrong with the clock. With midnight itself, I crawled toward the kitchen, dragging myself along the floor as the bells rang louder and louder. My reflection in the cabinet glass didn't move with me. It stood still, watching the stove clock blinked. 12 a.m. for the first time all night. A new time appeared. The bells stopped. So did everything else. Silence crashed down like a physical force. My ears rang. My vision blurred. The phone line went dead. Outside, the snow froze in midair. Then, footsteps echoed inside the house, not from the door, from the hallway. I turned slowly. Someone stood at the end of it, tall, thin, wearing my clothes. My face, my eyes, except they were hollow, like they had been carved out and left empty. "You hesitated," it said. "That's why I'm still here." It stepped forward, and with each step, memories flooded my mind, moments I didn't recognize, lives I hadn't lived, days that repeated and broke and reset, over and over again. Marrow's End wasn't celebrating the new year, it was correcting it. I understood then. Every year, at midnight, time tried to move forward. And every year, something rang the bells to stop it. To reset the moment before loss, before death, before endings. The town survived by trapping midnight and feeding it replacements. People who noticed the break. People who stayed awake. People like me. You can still choose, my double said, holding out a hand. Stay here and ring the bells, or go back and take my place outside. What happens to you? I asked. It smiled sadly. I finally get to leave. The clock on the wall ticked for the first time. It moved forward. 12:01 a.m. I felt the world pulling, tearing, splitting in two. I made my choice when I woke up. Sunlight streamed through my window. January 1, St. My phone showed dozens of unread messages from friends wishing me a happy new year. News alerts talked about fireworks, parties, celebrations. Marrow's End was gone. The address didn't exist. The school had no record of me. The town didn't appear on any map, except sometimes late at night. When everything is quiety here, bells, not 12, never 12. And when midnight comes, my reflection smiles a little too slowly, as if it's waiting for me to ring them again.
Story 3. The Last Wish at Midnight.
People in Raven's Hollow believed New Year's Eve was dangerous, not because of drinking or fireworks, but because of an old ritual no one admitted to practicing anymore. They called it the Last Wish. Officially, it was just a superstition. An old town story told to scare kids. But every adult in Raven's Hollow knew the rules by heart. Even if they swore they'd never followed them. On the final night of the year, at exactly 11:59 p.m., you were allowed to make one wish, not for the future. Not for success or love, but for something you had already lost: a person, a moment, a life that should have been different. You had to be alone. You had to speak the wish out loud, and you had to offer something in return. No one ever said what the offering was supposed to be, because the town already knew. I grew up hearing about the last wish, but like everyone else my age, I thought it was just another piece of small-town folklore. Raven's Hollow had plenty of those ghost stories tied to old mines. Rumors about people who vanished into the woods and came back wrong. Half-remembered tragedies no one wanted to discuss. But this ritual was different. It wasn't about fear. It was about regret. The year I turned 27, I decided to perform it, not because I believed in it, but because I had nothing left to lose. My younger sister, Emily, had died 3 years earlier in a hit-and-run accident on New Year's Eve. The driver was never found. The case went cold. Life moved on for everyone except me. Every December 31st, since then, Raven's Hollow felt tighter, quieter, like the town itself was holding its breath that year. Snow fell early, thick and heavy, muting every sound. Fireworks were banned after an accident years ago, so the night was always unnaturally silent. No cheers, no countdowns shouted into the cold, just clocks ticking toward midnight at 11:45 p.m. I locked myself inside my childhood home, the same house Emily and I grew up in, the same house she never came back to. I turned off every light except one lamp in the living room. I stood in front of the window, watching the snow pile up on the empty street. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't do it. My stomach tightened. I deleted the message. Told myself it was a prank. Raven's Hollow was full of people who liked messing with others on nights like this. At 11:58 p.m., the air changed. It's hard to explain unless you felt it. The house grew colder, even though the heater was running. The ticking clock on the wall sounded louder, slower, as if time itself was struggling to move forward. I remembered the final rule. Once you begin the ritual, you cannot stop. The clock clicked to 11:59. I swallowed and spoke. I wish Emily was alive. The words felt heavier than they should have. They didn't echo, they sank, like they were being absorbed by the walls. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights flickered. The clock stopped ticking. The snow outside froze in mid-air. Suspended like a photograph paused too long, and I wasn't alone anymore. I felt it before I saw Ita's presence behind me, close enough that my breath fogged the air between us. The smell hit next, cold, asphalt, metal, and something faintly sweet, like hospital disinfectant. A voice spoke, soft and familiar. You didn't say when. My heart slammed against my ribs. Slowly, I turned around. Emily stood in the hallway. She looked exactly as she had the night she died. Same winter coat, same scarf I'd given her for Christmas. No blood, no injuries, just pale, like she hadn't been warm in a long time. Tears blurred my vision. Emily, I whispered. She smiled, but it wasn't relief in her eyes. It was confusion. I was so tired, she said. And then you called me back. I reached for her, but she stepped away. That's not how it works, she said quietly. You know that the house groaned, deep and low, like it was settling under a sudden weight. The walls seemed closer, the shadows thicker. What do you mean? I asked. You're here. That's all that matters. Emily looked past me to the window, to the frozen street, to the town beyond. I wasn't finished, she said. And now neither are you. The clock on the wall cracked down the middle. Midnight arrived without a sound, and that's when Raven's Hollow began to collect what it was owed. The moment midnight passed, the town exhaled, not in relief, in hunger. The frozen snow outside shattered all at once, falling to the ground with a soft, unnatural rush. The clock on the wall lurched forward, its broken hands spinning wildly before settling at 12:01 a.m. Emily screamed, not loud deep, like the sound was being pulled out of her rather than spoken. I ran to her, grabbing her arms. She was ice cold, colder than the winter air outside. Her body trembled as the house around us began to change. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Doors appeared where none had been before. The living room light flickered, and for a split second, I saw shadows moving inside the wall's pressed shapes, like people trying to push their way out. This isn't right, I said, panic rising. We can fix this. We'll go to the clinic. There is no fixing it, Emily said, pulling free from my grip. Her voice cracked, layered with something else now. Something older. You didn't bring me back to life. You brought me back to the moment before I died. The front door slammed shut on its own. I rushed to it, twisting the handle. It wouldn't budge. Outside, I heard footsteps. Dozens of them. I peeked through the window. The street was full of people, not celebrating, not talking, just standing, their neighbors, shop owners, teachers, people I'd known my whole life. All of them staring at my house with hollow, sleepless eyes. And among them were others. I recognized, too late, people who had died. An old man who froze to death during a blackout years ago. A teenager who drowned in the quarry. A woman who vanished in the woods and was never found. They were all standing together, waiting. Emily backed away from them, her breath fogging violently. They heard you, she whispered. They always do. The windows began to frost from the inside. What are they? I asked out. Emily swallowed. They're the wishes that were never finished. The lights went out. In the darkness, the house shifted. The floor tilted slightly, like the building was sinking into something soft beneath it. I heard distant crying, not from outside, but from below us. From under the foundation. Raven's Hollow doesn't grant wishes, Emily said. It trades. A memory slammed into my head, something I'd heard as a child, but never questioned. Every New Year's Eve, one house in town stayed dark. One family didn't celebrate. One name quietly disappeared over the years. You're the offering, I said, my voice barely audible. Emily shook her head slowly. No, I'm the reminder. The front door cracked open. The people outside stepped forward as one. Their faces were calm now. Expectant. Emily grabbed my hand. You have to undo it. How? I cried. Tell me how. She looked at the broken clock. You have to wish me back where I belong. The house screamed. The walls split open, revealing rooms layered on top of rooms, memories stacked like rotting pages. I saw flashes of other rituals, people crying alone at windows, whispering names into the dark, welcoming things they should never have called back. The dead outside began to chant, not words, names, My name. I looked at Emily, really looked this time. She wasn't whole anymore. Parts of her flickered, like a bad reflection. Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to stay," she said. "But if you don't let me go, I'll take you with me." The chanting grew louder. I screamed the words. I wish Emily would go back. The house went silent. The chanting stopped. Emily smiled, relief washing over her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she began to fall apart, not violently, not painfully, like mist dissolving in sunlight. Her hands slipped through mine, cold turning warm. Then nothing at all. The door slammed shut. The lights came back on. The house settled outside. The street was empty. Morning came too quickly. Sunlight revealed normal snow, normal houses, normal silence. But Raven's Hollow had changed. The townspeople avoided me, wouldn't meet my eyes, wouldn't speak my name. The unknown number texted me once more that morning. "You survived." That wasn't supposed to happen. By nightfall, I understood why. I don't dream anymore. Not ever. When I sleep, there is nothing, no images, no sound, no darkness, just absence, and sometimes just before midnight. I feel the town watching me, waiting, because someone has to remember the cost. And next New Year's Eve, someone else will make the last wish, and Raven's Hollow will answer again. Story for Asterisk, the countdown that never reached zero. The town of Red Vale stopped counting down years a long time ago. They still celebrated New Year's Eve decorations. Lights the town square, filled with people, but no one ever said what year it was about to become. Calendars in Red Vale were strange that way. They showed months and days, but the year space was always blank, as if someone had erased it and never bothered to write a new one in. I noticed this on December 30th. The day I arrived, Red Vale sat off a state road that curved too sharply to feel intentional. Snowbanks lined the streets, higher than they should have been for early winter, as if storms had piled on without melting for years. The town sign read, "Welcome to Red Vale. Please stay until midnight." Assumed it was meant to be festive. I was wrong. I was there visiting my Aunt Lorraine, who had moved to Red Vale 3 years earlier and stopped coming home for holidays. Her calls grew shorter every year, stranger, like she was always distracted by something just out of view. Her house sat near the town square. Every window glowed with warm yellow light, every porch wrapped in decorations. Red Vale looked cheerful too, cheerful like a smile held too long. "Don't ask what year it is," Lorraine said the moment I stepped inside. Not hello. Not how was the drive. That I laughed awkwardly. Okay. She took my coat, her hands trembling just slightly. "You'll hear a countdown tonight," she said. "When you do, don't join in." "Is this some local prank?" I asked. Her eyes flicked toward the window. "No," she said. "It's a correction." That night, the town gathered in the square. There was a stage, speakers, strings of lights stretching overhead. Children ran through the snow. Couples held hands. Everything felt normal except no one drank alcohol, and no one checked the time at exactly 11:55 p.m. The music stopped. A hush rolled across the crowd, heavy and synchronized. Then a voice came over the speakers, not cheerful, not welcoming, flat, measured, almost tired. "Begin the countdown," the crowd responded. Immediately, 10, I didn't say it. I watched, 9. Every voice spoke in perfect unison. as if rehearsed for years. 8. I felt pressure in my ears, like descending too fast. 7. The air changed. The lights flickered not off, just dimmer. 6. A man near me began to cry quietly, tears freezing on his cheeks. 5. I noticed something wrong. Then the numbers weren't matching the time. My phone read 11:58 p.m. 4. The speakers crackled. 3. The snow stopped falling. 2. The ground vibrated beneath my feet, not like an explosion, but like something massive shifting underground. 1. The crowd fell silent. No cheering, no fireworks, no fireworks, no 0. The voice returned. Year. Denied. Every light in the square went out at once. Total darkness, then dash screaming. I felt hands grab me from every direction, pulling, pushing, dragging people apart. Somewhere close, something heavy collapsed. Glass shattered. Someone shouted a name that echoed unnaturally long. Then, abruptly, lights returned. People stood exactly where they had been before, smiling. Music resumed. The clock tower chimed. Midnight. My phone buzzed. 11:59 p.m. Lorraine grabbed my arm hard, enough to hurt. You spoke, she whispered. I didn't. I said, you breathed with them, she replied. It heard you. Heard what? She looked at the crowd, then leaned close. That you want time to move forward. I noticed something then. There were fewer people than before. Not dramatically fewer, just enough that no one seemed to notice. And on the stage, behind the speakers, a new banner had been hung. Countdown attempts. 1042 below it. In smaller text, next review. My dear Lorraine pulled me toward home. Sleep, she said urgently. If you dream of numbers, don't finish them. What happens if it reaches 0? I asked. She stopped walking. Her voice dropped to a whisper so quiet, it felt like a confession. It already did, she said. Once that night, as I lay awake, I heard counting outside my window. Soft, patient, starting again. 10. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, numbers appeared floating, glowing, unfinished. Not written, not spoken, waiting, outside my bedroom window. The counting continued. Not loud, not rushed, patient, double quotes. 8, 7. I sat up, heart racing, and checked my phone. December 31st to 11:46 p.m. I had Dan. T slept for more than 5 minutes. The counting wasn't for tonight. It was rehearsing. The truth about REDVA let dawn. Lorraine finally told me. We sat at the kitchen table, untouched coffee between us. Her hands were shaking again, but now I knew it wasn't fear. It was exhaustion. Red Veil wasn't always like this, she said. We used to celebrate years like everyone else. Birthdays, anniversaries, progress. What happened? I asked. She took a breath that sounded like it scraped her lungs. The town tried to skip a year. I frowned. That's not possible. That's what we thought. 23 years ago, Red Veil had been dying. The mill closed. People left. Winter storms worsened. Businesses failed one by one. Someone no one remembers who suggested a ritual, not magic, not worship, a correction. They believed time was flexible, that years were permissions granted by something larger. If they could deny a bad year, maybe they could reach a better one. So they gathered on New Year's Eve, and they counted. when they reached 0. Instead of celebrating, they refused it. They told the year it wasn't allowed to happen at first. Nothing changed. Then January never came. The calendar reset to December 31st. Midnight passed but time stayed. People panicked, Lorraine said. They tried to leave. Roads looped. Phones reset. Radios played recordings from years that hadn't happened yet. Then, the counting started again, not by people, by the town, by the year that never existed. The missing people remembered, the square, the missing faces. Where did they go? I asked. Lorraine swallowed. They finished the countdown. When someone participates, when they want time to move forward, the year listens, and it takes them. Not their bodies, their place, their memories get folded into the year that never existed. A year made of people, a year trying to be born. The final ATTMP that night. The town gathered again. But this time, something was different. The banner now read, Countdown attempts, 1043. Maximum attempts, RESIC. Lorraine gripped my hand. This is the last one, she said. Either it succeeds, or Red Veil ends. The voice came over the speakers again, but now it sounded strained, almost angry. Begin the countdown. No one spoke. The silence hurt. Then a child said it. 10. The ground shifted. The sky darkened unnaturally fast. Clouds spiraling inward like a closing eye. 9. Buildings groaned. 8. Windows cracked. Snow began to fall upward. 7. People screamed now, unable to stop themselves. 6. I felt it pulling at me, not my body, but my future, like something deciding whether I deserved one. 5. Lorraine turned to me, tears streaming. You have to finish it, she said. What? You don't belong to this year, she said. It can't take you unless you invite it. 4. She pushed me toward the stage 3, Lorraine. No. 2. She smiled, soft, relieved. I already gave it mine. 1. I shouted. 0. The world broke. What happened after Zeraver was no explosion, no light, just absence, then dash morning. January 1, Saint, the town was empty. No decorations, no snow, no people. My phone showed a year, a real one. Red Veil was gone from the map. The road curved, straight. Lorraine's house never existed. Only one thing remained, a plaque on the roadside. Here stood Red Velia town that tried to correct time. Time corrected it instead. Sometimes, on New Year's Eve, my phone buzzes. Unknown number. A single message. Begin the countdown. I never reply, but I still hear it. Every year, waiting for someone else to say 0. Story 5, the last name on the mirror. They say, some New Year's Eve rituals are harmless. Eating grapes, making wishes, writing resolutions. But in the small river town of Black Hollow, there was one ritual no one spoke about openly. Not anymore, it was called the ritual of seeing. And it was only done on New Year's Eve, exactly 3 minutes before midnight. I didn't believe in it at first. I came to Black Hollow because my sister Emily had gone missing here the previous year on New Year's Eve. The police report was thin. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, just one line that never made sense to me. Last known location, residence bathroom, mirror damaged. A mirror, that was it. The locals were strange in that way, small towns often are. polite, quiet, and unwilling to talk once the sun went down. Whenever I mentioned Emily's name, conversations died. Whenever I mentioned New Year's Eve, people physically flinched. One bartender finally whispered to me, after his third drink, "Some rituals don't show you the future, they show you who's next." The rules of the rituale found the rules scribbled inside an old church ledger from the 1960s, hidden behind hymn pages. They were written in uneven ink, as if the writer's hands were shaking. Perform the ritual alone. Turn off every light. Stand before a mirror at 11:57 p.m. Speak the phrase, "Let me see what the year will take." Do not look away if a name appears. Do not say it out loud. The last rule was underlined repeatedly, so hard the paper had torn. I didn't want to believe Emily had done this. But when I searched her phone backup, I found something that made my stomach drop. A note she'd saved on December 31st, 11:54 p.m. It's probably fake, but if it's real, at least I'll know. New Year's Eve. One year, Leteri stood in Emily's old bathroom, same mirror, same cracked sink, same faint stain on the floor that the landlord had never fully scrubbed out. It was 11:56 p.m. I told myself I was only doing this to understand what happened to her. That was a lie. I wanted to see her again. I turned off the lights. The mirror reflected nothing but darkness and my own breathing face. My phone buzzed texts from friends, counting down. 11:57 p.m. I swallowed and spoke the words, "Let me see what the year will take." At first, nothing happened. Then the mirror fogged. Not from steam, but from the inside. As if someone behind the glass was breathing. Letters began to form, slowly, carefully, like they were being written by an invisible finger. The first Namia name appeared, not Emily's, not mine. It was the name of the bartender. I stepped back, heart racing. The letters dripped downward like wet ink. Then the mirror cleared completely. I laughed, shaky, relieved, just a trick. A coincidence until my phone buzzed. A local news alert, breaking. Man found dead behind Black Hollow Tavern. Time of death, 11:58 p.m. I dropped the phone, the second underneath. Mirror fogged again. Faster this time, another name formed. The old woman who ran the motel. Screamed and slammed my eyes shut. When I opened them, the name was gone. I ran outside. Sirens echoed less than a minute later. The truth, Emily. Never Escapedi finally understood. The ritual didn't show the future. It locked it in. Once the mirror wrote a name, the year demanded it. And the worst part, at 11:59 p.m., the mirror always showed one final name, the name of the person standing in front of it. My breathing turned ragged. I didn't want to look, but the rules said you must not look away. The mirror began to fog for the third time. This time, the letters formed slowly, deliberately, as if savoring it. Emily, my sister's name, still trapped, still unfinished. Then the letters shifted, rearranged, changed. Las 11:59 p. New name began to appear, one I recognized. The letters stopped halfway through my name, just long enough for me to understand. Something was wrong. The mirror wasn't rushing anymore. It was deciding. 11 hours 59 minutes and 12 seconds p.m. The bathroom felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were leaning inward to listen. My breath fogged the air, but the mirror fogged back harder, thicker, as if something behind it was pressing its face against the glass. The letters resumed. J. I screamed. Not from fear, from rage. No, I shouted. You already took her. The mirror didn't care. It never had. The name that didn't, Effie and I searched. The writing slowed to a crawl. Each letter appeared with effort, like the mirror itself was struggling. That's when I noticed something new behind the letters, behind my reflection. There were shapes, faces, not reflections, imprints, like people pressed flat against the other side of the glass. Mouths open, eyes wide, silently screaming. One face pushed forward more than the others. I recognized it immediately. Emily. Her eyes moved. They locked onto mine. She was alive. Not alive like breathing. Live like preserved. Trapped. The real purpose of the right you. Emily's lips moved. Slowly, painfully, as if the glass resisted every word. She mouthed three things. It doesn't end. It trades. Run. The mirror shuddered violently. The half-written name began to smear, the letters bleeding downward, unraveling like they were being erased from existence. The faces behind the glass pressed harder, panicking because something was changing. The secret no one said out loud. The ritual didn't take one life per year. It took one soul to seal the mirror. Every year, the town repeated it, not for curiosity, not for tradition, but to delay something far worse. If the final name was completed, the mirror didn't claim a person. It opened, and whatever lived behind it came through. My dear. Church bells rang. The mirror cracked straight down the center. Not shattered, opened. Cold air poured out like breath from a grave. Hands began pushing through the glass. Too many, layered, tangled together. Voices poured out next. Whispers, overlapping whispers. You saw, you invited. Now choose. Emily screamed, not from fear, from warning. The choicier voice, older than the town, older than the mirror, spoke directly into my skull. A name for a name. I understood. Instantly, I could finish the ritual. Speak a name, any name. Someone else would be taken. The mirror would seal. Again, the town would survive another year. Emily would remain trapped, or I could refuse. Let the mirror fully open. Let everything behind it spill into the world. What I whispered my own name out loud, breaking the final rule. The mirror screamed. The faces howled. Emily's eyes widened. The glass imploded, not outward, but inward, sucking everything with it. The cold, the voices, the hands. The mirror collapsed into nothing but a black, lightless void, and then sealed shut. Silence. Morning. Woke up on the bathroom floor. The mirror was gone. Just bare wall, no cracks, no glass, no reflection. Emily was gone, but so were the other faces. The town woke too. New Year's Day, like nothing had happened. No deaths, no sirens, no missing persons. The ritual ended. The final truthy tried to leave black hollow. I couldn't. Every mirror I look into now, windows, screens, polished metal. There's a delay, a half second where my reflection doesn't copy me, where it watches, waiting, because the mirror didn't take me. It marked me, and next New Year's Eve it will want a name again.
Story 6. The list. They burn at midnight. The town of Gravesend Hollow didn't count down to the new year. They counted names. I learned that on my first winter there, standing outside the town hall while everyone else watched a bonfire burn low and quiet. No music. No laughter. No champagne. Just faces lit orange by firelight, eyes fixed on the flames like they were waiting for something to crawl out. At exactly midnight, the mayor stepped forward holding a folded piece of paper. He didn't read it aloud. He burned it. And everyone exhaled like they'd survived something. Gravesend Hollow was the kind of place people forgot existed, one road in, one road out, buried deep between forests that never seemed to thin no matter how far you drove. I moved there after inheriting my uncle's house, a narrow, two-story place that leaned toward the woods like it was listening. The locals were polite. Too polite. They asked my name often. Repeated it. Wrote it down more than once. I thought nothing of it. I should have. On December 28th, I found the notebook. It was tucked behind a loose board in the basement wall, wrapped in plastic, brittle with age. Inside were lists. Dozens of them. Each page dated December 31st. Each list filled with names. Some were crossed out. Some were circled. Some had notes written beside them in shaky handwriting. Moved away before midnight. Refused to participate. Still heard screaming. The most recent list ended 5 years ago. At the bottom, written darker than the rest, were the words. Burn after completion. I flipped back through older pages. Every list had one thing in common. The same last name appeared again and again. Mine. I confronted Mrs. Calder, my nearest neighbor, an old woman who watched my house through lace curtains day and night. When I showed her the notebook, her hands began to shake so badly she dropped it. You weren't supposed to find that, she whispered. What is it? I demanded. Why is my name on these lists? Her eyes flicked toward the woods. They're not death lists, she said. They're survival lists. That was when she told me the rule. Every New Year's Eve, the town made a list of people who might be taken when the year changed. No one knew how the list was chosen. No one knew who decided. They only knew that if the list was burned before midnight, the names disappeared, and the town survived another year. But if a name isn't burned? I asked. Mrs. Calder swallowed. Then the year keeps them. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2:17 a.m., I heard footsteps outside my house. Not walking, counting. Slow, deliberate steps circling the property. I looked out the window. Figures stood at the edge of the trees, barely visible, tall and thin, their bodies bent in unnatural angles. They didn't move. They didn't blink. They waited. I heard whispering, overlapping voices murmuring numbers instead of words. 3. 4. 5. They weren't counting time. They were counting people. On December 30th, the mayor came to my door. He smiled too wide. We add new names every year, he said calmly. Growth is dangerous. You put me on the list, I said. We didn't, he replied. The year did. He leaned closer. You still have one chance. To do what? To leave before midnight tomorrow, he said. Or, to help us burn the list. And if I don't? His smile faded. Then the year will learn your face. On New Year's Eve, the town gathered again around the bonfire. This time, I saw what I'd missed before. The fire wasn't burning paper. It was burning photographs. Polaroids of people standing where I stood now. Some were crying. Some were smiling. None were alive anymore. The mayor unfolded the list. I saw my name. But it wasn't alone. There were others added in fresh ink. Children. Visitors. People who had tried to leave too late. The fire crackled louder as midnight approached, and the woods began to move. Branches bent inward. The figures stepped closer. And that's when I realized something worse. There was no rule saying all the names had to be burned. Only enough. The clock began its final minute. The mayor held the list above the fire. And hesitated. The mayor's hand trembled above the fire. The list fluttered in the heat, edges curling, names blurring as the flames licked closer. The crowd leaned forward as one body, breath held, eyes wide, not in hope, but calculation. I saw it then. Fear wasn't what ruled Gravesend Hollow. Math did. The mayor looked back at the crowd. People nodded subtly. Some shook their heads. A few stared directly at me, their expressions apologetic, resigned, like they were deciding who would drown if the boat tipped. The list dropped. But not all of it. The mayor tore the paper cleanly in half. One half vanished into the fire, names screaming upward in sparks. The other half he folded neatly and slipped into his coat pocket as the clock struck midnight. The woods screamed. The sound wasn't human, but it wasn't animal either. It was the noise of something ancient being reminded it was hungry. The figures stepped out from the trees fully now, tall, jointed wrong, their shadows bending before they did. Where their faces should have been were smooth, pale surfaces etched with faint lines, like erased writing. Numbers glowed faintly across their bodies. The year had arrived. People began to scream as the ground vibrated beneath our feet. The bonfire collapsed inward, flames sucked down as if into a mouth. Frost spread across the dirt in branching patterns, racing toward the crowd. The figures moved. They didn't chase. They collected. A man beside me was lifted off the ground without being touched, his body folding inward as if time itself were compressing him. He aged decades in seconds, skin sagging, hair whitening, until he simply collapsed into dust. A child screamed as a shadow wrapped around her ankles and pulled her backward toward the woods. Her mother tried to grab her, only for her hands to pass through like smoke. Names echoed through the air. Not spoken. Remembered. I felt it then, a pressure inside my skull, like something rifling through my thoughts. Every regret. Every secret. Every moment I wished I could undo. The year was reading me. I ran. The crowd scattered, screaming, trampling one another, but the figures didn't pursue randomly. They moved with purpose, drifting toward specific people. Toward specific names. Toward me. I burst into my uncle's house, slamming the door behind me. The walls shook as something brushed past outside. The whispering returned, louder now. 1, 2, 3. I tore open the basement wall, ripping the loose board free and grabbing the notebook. The list spilled onto the floor, pages fluttering like trapped birds. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. Every list wasn't written in the same handwriting. Some were neat. Some were rushed. Some were shaky. The townspeople weren't just burning the lists. They were helping write them. The year didn't choose alone. It listened. A knock came at the door. Slow. Deliberate. Not the mayor. Mrs. Calder's voice drifted through the wood. "You understand now," she said softly. "Don't you?" I opened the door. Her eyes were glowing faintly, reflecting the same numbers I'd seen on the figures. "We learned long ago," she continued, "that the year takes everyone eventually. But if we offer it names willingly, it stays satisfied. It leaves the rest of us untouched. You sacrifice people," I said. "We survive," she corrected. "There's a difference." Behind her, the figures hovered, waiting. "You were always meant to be on the list," she said gently. "Your family volunteered generations ago. That house. It's part of the agreement. My uncle hadn't died. He had been counted." The notebook grew warm in my hands. The whispering stopped. Silence fell. I realized the truth in a sick, sudden clarity. The year couldn't write. It could only keep what was offered. Hands shaking, I flipped to a blank page. And began to write. At dawn, Gravesend Hollow was quiet. Too quiet. The snow lay untouched. The woods were still. No footprints led away from the town square, only inward. The mayor was found standing frozen beside the extinguished bonfire, eyes wide, mouth open mid-scream. Others lay collapsed in their homes, aged into husks or reduced to dust. Mrs. Calder was gone. So were most of the townspeople. The notebook lay in the ashes. The final list burned completely. Every name. Authorities later said Gravesend Hollow suffered a gas leak. Or mass hysteria. Or collective suicide. They fenced it off. Condemned it. But every New Year's Eve since, people driving past the forest report the same thing. A whisper through their radios. A voice counting softly. 1, 2, 3. And sometimes, if they listen closely, they swear they hear a pen scratching on paper. Because the year didn't disappear. It learned. And now it knows how to write its own lists.
Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Terramouth.